A desperate escape. The days that followed were filled with uncertainty. Simbi and Ali knew they had to act fast. The man's warning haunted them both, but they couldn't afford to panic. They had to keep moving, keep changing their plans. If the royal agents were already on their trail, then staying in Kumba would no longer be an option. They spent the next day gathering supplies and planning their next move. Simbi insisted that they not go straight to the royal palace or try to escape to another city. Instead, they decided to head toward the mountains to the north. They knew the roads there were less traveled and that they could blend in with the local people who lived in the remote villages. But just as they were about to leave, another unexpected turn of events changed everything. The door to their small inn-room suddenly burst open. A group of men, armed with swords and cloaked in dark robes, stormed in. One of them, his face hidden by a mask, pointed directly at Simbi. "Come with us, Your Highness," he ordered, his voice cold and unyielding. The tension in the story deepens as Ali and Simbi's escape becomes even more urgent. With royal agents closing in, the adventure takes new, dangerous turns, and their love and courage will be tested like never before. The story will continue with new challenges, unexpected allies, and deeper revelations as they fight for their freedom. The last stand. The sudden intrusion caught both Ali and Simbi off guard. The men who burst into their room were swift and fierce, their movements calculated and precise. Ali barely had time to react before one of them grabbed him by the arm, pushing him back toward the wall. Another man reached for Simbi, his grip tight on her wrist as he yanked her toward the door. "Let her go," Ali shouted, trying to break free from the man holding him. His pulse quickened, and his eyes darted to Simbi, who looked equally alarmed. Simbi's heart raced. She tried to struggle free from the man holding her, but his grip was unyielding. The weight of the situation hit her hard. They had been free for so long, but now it seemed like everything was collapsing around them. "Do not resist," one of the masked men said in a harsh tone. His voice was low, almost threatening. "You are coming with us, princess. The king will have you back." Simbi's eyes blazed with defiance. "I will never go back to that life," she hissed. "Not even if you kill me." Her words only seemed to amuse the men. They exchanged glances, their expressions hidden beneath their masks, before one of them pulled out a rope. "You will return willingly, or we will make you return," the man said coldly. Ali, still struggling against the man holding him, made a split-second decision. He had no choice but to act, or they would both be dragged back to the palace, and whatever awaited them there would be far worse than the danger they faced now. His hand shot to the dagger hidden in his boot. With a swift, practiced movement, he drew it out and slashed at the man's arm, catching him off guard. The man screamed, loosening his grip. Ali didn't hesitate. He twisted his body, breaking free of the man's hold, and quickly lunged for Simbi, grabbing her and pulling her into his arms. "Run," he shouted. Now, Simbi didn't need any more prompting. She sprinted toward the window, following Ali's lead. They were no longer concerned with the consequences. They had to escape, and fast. Without thinking, Ali grabbed Simbi's hand and pulled her up onto the windowsill, jumping down into the alley below. They landed with a hard thud, but neither of them cared about the pain in their legs. They scrambled to their feet, looking around quickly for an escape route. The streets were crowded, but they knew the palace's agents would not be far behind. The city of Kumba, with its narrow streets and hidden alleys, was their only advantage now. "Keep running," Ali urged, his breath coming in quick gasps. Simbi followed him, her heart pounding in her chest. They darted through the back alleys, trying to remain unseen by the crowds. Ali led the way, his eyes sharp, scanning every corner for danger. They knew the city well enough to understand where they could hide, but it was only a matter of time before the royal agents realized they were gone. As they moved deeper into the city's underbelly, they passed dark corners and abandoned buildings, places that Simbi had never ventured before. For all the wealth and luxury she had grown up with, This was a side of Kumba she had never seen, shadows and secrets, where people came to escape or to hide from the law. It was dangerous, but it was also their only hope. After what felt like hours of running, they arrived at an old stone bridge on the outskirts of the city. The moonlight reflected off the water below, casting eerie shadows. Ali stopped abruptly, his breathing heavy. Simbi's chest heaved as she caught up with him, her legs burning from the exertion. "We need to cross," Ali said, his voice urgent. "The other side of the river. There's a village where we can lay low." Simbi nodded, but her mind was racing. They had crossed the line now. There would be no going back. The royal family would never stop looking for her. But even as the weight of her choices pressed down on her, she knew she had made the right one. She was with Ali, and that was all that mattered. "Let's go," Simbi said, determination filling her voice. They crossed the bridge in silence, walking carefully along the narrow path that led toward the village. The air was cool, and the sound of the river flowing beneath them was calming, but Simbi couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Ali's senses were on high alert, his every instinct telling him that danger was closing in. He pulled Simbi to a halt as they neared the entrance to the village. There, in the distance, a shadow moved, too deliberate to be a passerby. "Get down," Ali hissed, pulling Simbi into the cover of some nearby bushes. They crouched low, holding their breath as the shadow grew nearer. It was a man, tall and broad-shouldered, moving with purpose. His dark cloak fluttered in the night wind, but his face was hidden. He was alone, but that didn't make him any less dangerous. Ali's heart pounded in his chest as the man passed by them, unaware of their presence. Simbi's eyes widened. "Who was that?" Ali didn't answer immediately. He stayed perfectly still, waiting for the man to disappear. When the sound of footsteps faded, Ali slowly exhaled. "That was too close," he muttered. "He's one of the royal spies." Simbi's stomach twisted with unease. "They're already here? They know we're in the city," Ali confirmed. "We have to move, fast." They waited until the coast seemed clear, then silently emerged from the bushes and continued toward the village. The quiet urgency between them was palpable. They couldn't afford to waste any time. The village was their only chance to regroup and figure out their next move. The hidden village they reached was small, tucked away in the valley behind the mountains. It was a peaceful place, its simple cottages nestled among lush green fields, surrounded by tall trees that seemed to protect it from the outside world. There were no grand palaces here, no bustling markets, just a quiet rhythm of life. The villagers went about their work with little concern for the world beyond their borders. As they approached the village, Ali and Simbi tried to blend in, walking as if they were just another pair of weary travelers seeking refuge for the night. The villagers, who were used to outsiders passing through, paid them no mind. They found an inn run by an elderly woman named Mama Coco, who welcomed them without question. Her eyes were wise, as though she had seen much in her long life, but there was a softness about her, too. She took one look at Simbi and Ali and understood they weren't just ordinary travelers. "You're safe here," Mama Coco said, her voice low but reassuring. "For now. But I know the city of Kumba well, and I can tell by the way you look that you're running from something, or someone." Simbi nodded, not wanting to speak of her past just yet. Ali thanked the woman for her hospitality, and they settled into a small, modest room in the back of the inn. The bed was simple but comfortable, and for the first time in what felt like days, they could relax, even if just for a few hours. That night, as they lay in the quiet darkness, Simbi's thoughts once again turned to her family. Her parents' faces, the coldness in their eyes, the power they wielded, it all seemed so far away now. And yet, every moment that passed, the weight of their expectations hung over her like a dark cloud. She wondered if they would ever stop searching for her. Would they ever accept her choice to live her own life? "Ali," she whispered in the dark. "Do you think we'll ever be free?" Ali turned to her, his hand finding hers in the dark. I don't know what the future holds, Simbi. But as long as we're together, we're already free. They can't take that away from us. Simbi squeezed his hand, feeling the warmth and sincerity in his touch. For a moment, she allowed herself to believe that everything would be okay. But deep down, she knew their journey was far from over. They had just begun to face the consequences of their choices, and the path ahead would be even more dangerous than they could ever imagine. The mysterious stranger. The following morning, Mama Coco greeted them with a warm meal, and they ate in silence, trying to recover from the events of the previous days. The village was quiet, and there was a peacefulness here that they hadn't felt in a long time. But as they finished their meal, a new figure appeared in the doorway. It was a man, dressed in plain clothes but with an air of authority about him. His face was rugged, with sharp features and piercing eyes. He looked older than Ali, but there was something about him, something familiar. He stepped into the room, his gaze shifting between Simbi and Ali before settling on them both. "I've been looking for you," the man said, his voice low but urgent. Simbi's heart skipped a beat. "Who are you?" The man's eyes narrowed, but there was no malice in them. "I'm someone who can help you," he said. "But you have to trust me." Ali stepped forward, his hand instinctively going to his dagger. "What kind of help?" The hidden truth. The man's presence in the room was both unsettling and intriguing. Ali, ever cautious, stepped protectively in front of Simbi, his hand still near his dagger. Simbi, on the other hand, was both wary and curious. After everything they had been through, she knew not to trust easily, but there was something about this stranger that felt different. "I don't trust anyone easily," Ali said, his voice low but firm. "Especially not someone who knows we've been running." The man raised his hands in a gesture of peace. "I understand your distrust, but I'm not your enemy. My name is Juma, and I'm here because I know who you are, Princess Simbi, and I know what you're running from." Simbi stiffened at the mention of her royal name. She had hoped to leave that part of her life behind, but it seemed the past was determined to follow her, no matter how far she ran. "You know who I am?" Simbi asked, her voice trembling despite her attempt at composure. "How?" Juma glanced over his shoulder, ensuring the room was still empty before stepping further into the space, his voice lowering. "I've been keeping an eye on the royal family for years. I've seen the way they control their kingdom, using manipulation and fear to bend people to their will. And I've seen you, Simbi, struggling with it for far longer than you think. I know you didn't choose this life." Simbi exchanged a glance with Ali. She could sense the truth in his words, but she still had questions, many of them. "Why are you helping us?" Juma gave a soft, knowing smile. "Because I've seen what the royal family is capable of. I've seen what they'll do to keep their power, and I can't stand by and watch you be a pawn in their game. You deserve to live freely, Simbi. And I can help you do that." Ali's suspicion was not easily swayed. "What do you want in return?" Juma's smile faltered, and he sighed deeply, as if the weight of his next words burdened him. "What I want is not something you can easily give, Ali. But I can promise you this. I've been working against the royal family for years. There are others like me, people who want to see the kingdom change. And I can help you escape them, for good. But there is a price." Simbi looked at Ali, her thoughts racing. There was so much she didn't know about this man, but there was a strange urgency in his words, an intensity that made her think he wasn't lying. "What's the price?" Simbi asked, her voice trembling slightly. Juma stepped closer, lowering his voice even further. "The price is not a simple one. You'll have to trust me completely, and you'll have to take on a role you might not be ready for. You will need to join us, not just to escape the royal family, but to help change the kingdom itself. There is a rebellion forming in the shadows, and you, Princess, have a part to play in it. A very important part." Simbi's breath caught in her throat. "A rebellion?" The thought of it filled her with both dread and excitement. She had always known, deep down, that something needed to change in her kingdom. But to be a part of it? To lead it? That was a thought that was almost too overwhelming to grasp. Ali's face darkened as he looked from Simbi to Juma. This sounds dangerous, far more dangerous than anything we've been through already. Juma nodded, his expression grave. It is, but you're already in danger, Ali. The royal family won't stop until Simbi is back under their control. And if they catch wind of this rebellion, they'll come after everyone involved, no matter the cost. They have spies everywhere, and you, he pointed directly at Simbi, are the key to it all. They'll never let you go. Not unless you fight back. Simbi's heart raced. She had hoped that by running away, she could escape the expectations of her family, but it seemed like that was impossible. If the royal family truly had spies everywhere, if they were willing to stop at nothing to get her back, then there was no other choice but to fight. I don't know if I'm ready for this, Simbi said, her voice barely a whisper. I don't know if I can be the leader you want me to be. You don't have to lead alone, Juma replied quickly. There are many others who will help you. People who have suffered just as much as you have. And as for Ali, he can be by your side, as your protector, as your partner. Simbi turned to look at Ali, her heart heavy with the weight of the decision she was facing. She knew he would stand by her no matter what, but this was bigger than them. This was about a kingdom, about the lives of countless people who had been oppressed for generations. If she did nothing, nothing would change. The royal family would continue their reign, and the suffering would continue as well. But if she fought, if she joined Juma and the rebellion, she could make a difference. She could change everything. I can't do this alone, Simbi finally said, her voice stronger now, though still uncertain. But maybe it's time to fight back. Ali placed a hand on her shoulder, his expression soft but firm. Then we fight together. Juma smiled, though it was a smile tinged with sadness. I knew you would understand. This isn't going to be easy, and it won't be quick. But it's the only way to secure your freedom, Simbi. The kingdom will be watching, and they will come for you, no matter where you go. But if we move quickly, if we gather the right people and prepare, we might just stand a chance. Simbi nodded, the decision made. Then let's do it. The rebels' path. The days that followed were filled with tension and preparation. Juma didn't waste any time. He moved quickly, organizing a network of contacts across the village, arranging secret meetings, and working to form a plan for the rebellion. Simbi and Ali did everything they could to help, even though the weight of their decision felt like an anchor pulling them down. It wasn't long before Simbi began to understand the gravity of what she had chosen. The rebellion was not just about escaping her past, it was about taking down a corrupt system, one that had oppressed and controlled the people of the kingdom for generations. It was about giving people a chance at freedom, a chance to live their lives without fear of the royal family's iron grip. As the days turned into weeks, Simbi's role became clearer. She was no longer just a runaway princess, she was the symbol of hope for many, a leader in the making. And with every passing day, she felt the weight of that responsibility more keenly. She was no longer just fighting for herself, she was fighting for the future of the kingdom. But the path of rebellion was never a safe one. Every day brought new dangers, new risks. They couldn't trust anyone, and they couldn't afford to make mistakes. The royal family's spies were everywhere, and they knew that sooner or later, someone would betray them. One evening, as Simbi and Ali were meeting with some of their allies in a hidden part of the village, a messenger arrived with grim news. There are soldiers in the town, the messenger said, his face pale with fear. They're searching for a princess. They know she's here. Simbi's heart sank. Battle for the future with the royal soldiers closing in. The rebellion had no choice but to act. Now, there was no more running. The time for planning was over. The fight was here. They had to fight. Simbi, Ali, and their small group of allies prepared for battle, knowing that if they failed, their lives, and the future of the kingdom, would be lost. The battle ahead would be fierce, and no one could predict who would emerge victorious. But one thing was certain. The fight for freedom had begun, and Simbi was ready to face whatever came next. The story of Ali and Simbi, the two unlikely heroes, was far from over. With the rebellion in full swing and the royal family desperate to reclaim control, the challenges would only become greater. But no matter what happened, they would continue their journey together, fighting for a future they both believed in. The adventure continues, and the stakes grow higher as Simbi and Ali face trials and tribulations that will test their courage, loyalty, and love for each other. The path ahead is uncertain, but one thing is clear. Their journey will shape the future of the kingdom, and their love will be the key to unlocking a new era of freedom. The rising storm the night had fallen swiftly over the village, and the air was thick with tension. Simbi and Ali huddled together in the dim light of the rebel hideout, the weight of the coming battle heavy in their hearts. Their plan was set, and yet, doubt crept in like a shadow. Simbi sat on the ground, her fingers tracing the edge of a map spread before her. The plan was clear. They would strike at dawn, attacking a small garrison on the outskirts of the royal city. It was a strategic move, weakening the royal forces while giving the rebellion a foothold within the kingdom itself. But it was also dangerous. The royal soldiers were ruthless, and there would be no turning back once they committed. Ali, standing by the door, his eyes sharp, looked out into the night. "Are we ready for this?" he asked quietly. He wasn't asking Simbi, he was asking himself. He knew the answer. He knew they had no choice. But it was a question that haunted him, especially as the moment grew closer. Simbi didn't look up from the map. Her fingers hovered over the marks she had made, tracing each route, each plan with meticulous care. "We'll never be ready," she said finally, her voice calm, but beneath it, there was a sense of finality. "But we have to try. For the people, for the future." Ali moved closer, kneeling beside her. "And if we fail?" Simbi paused, her eyes meeting his for the briefest moment. In her gaze was a resolve that had hardened over the past few weeks. "We won't fail. We can't. There's no turning back." The door to the hideout creaked open, and a voice broke the silence. "We've been discovered." Simbi stood up quickly, her heart racing. "What? How?" She had hoped they had more time, more space to prepare, but it seemed like the royal forces had caught wind of their plans sooner than expected. Juma, the leader of the rebellion, stepped into the room, his face grim. "They know about the attack. It's not just a garrison anymore, they've moved reinforcements. There are more soldiers coming. We're running out of time." Simbi's mind raced. "We can't wait any longer then. We need to move now." Ali nodded, his jaw clenched. He reached for his weapons, preparing himself for the battle that was about to unfold. He had fought before, but never with so much at stake. This time, it wasn't just a matter of survival, it was the future of the entire kingdom. Juma looked between Simbi and Ali, his eyes filled with both admiration and fear. "Are you sure about this, princess? The risk is enormous." Simbi stood tall, her posture unwavering. She had made up her mind. "I'm sure. If we don't fight now, they'll crush us before we ever have a chance. We need to take the kingdom back, and we need to do it before they can stop us." Juma nodded, respect in his eyes. "Then let's move." The battle for Kumba, the first light of dawn began to break over the horizon, casting a pale glow over the village as the rebellion prepared for their assault. Simbi and Ali stood at the head of the group, their eyes focused, hearts heavy with the weight of what was to come. Around them, the rebels were readying their weapons, checking their gear, and ensuring their positions were secure. The tension was palpable. "We move in 10 minutes, Juma said, his voice low but urgent. "Everyone knows their role, no mistakes." Simbi's hands were steady as she strapped a small dagger to her side. She had never imagined herself in a position like this, leading an army of rebels fighting for the future of the kingdom. Yet here she was, standing on the precipice of something bigger than herself, with the weight of an entire kingdom on her shoulders. Ali stood beside her, his presence both a comfort and a reminder of the danger they faced. His eyes never left her as he checked his own weapons, ready for what lay ahead. His loyalty to her had been unwavering from the start, and he was willing to risk everything to see her safe. "We're in this together," he whispered to her, his voice rough but full of resolve. Simbi turned to him, her heart swelling with gratitude and love. She nodded, squeezing his hand. Together. The signal was given, and the rebellion began to move. They crossed through the fields toward the royal garrison, staying in the shadows and avoiding the patrols. Every step was calculated, every movement made in silence. The village, once peaceful, had become a battlefield. It was a quiet march to war, but in Simbi's heart, the storm was already raging. As they approached the garrison, the sound of clashing swords and shouting grew louder. The royal soldiers had already begun their defense. The battle had already begun, and the rebellion was walking right into the heart of it. Simbi's breath hitched as they neared the gates of the garrison. "Are we sure we can take this place?" she asked Juma, her voice tight with uncertainty. Juma looked back at her, his face calm but his eyes intense. "We have no choice. The garrison is just the beginning. Once we take it, the real fight begins." Ali moved in close to Simbi, his hand on her shoulder. "Remember, we're here for the people. For their freedom." Simbi nodded, steeling herself for what was to come. They couldn't afford to hesitate. Not now. Not when everything was on the line. The battle erupted as soon as they charged into the garrison. It was chaos, sword clashes, cries of battle, and the sound of heavy boots stomping against the ground filled the air. The royal soldiers were fierce, but the rebellion fought with desperation, with the knowledge that their freedom was at stake. Simbi fought with all her might, her dagger flashing in the morning light as she slashed at the soldiers who came too close. Her movements were sharp, calculated, every strike carrying the weight of the future. She had never been trained for this kind of battle, but in the heat of it, she found a strength within herself she hadn't known existed. Ali was by her side every step of the way, his strength and skill a constant presence. He protected her, his every move aimed at keeping her safe. He knew the risks, knew that in this battle, they could lose everything. But he would fight until his last breath to protect her. The garrison was soon overrun, the royal soldiers retreating, but Simbi knew that this was only the beginning. There were more forces coming. The rebellion had to move quickly. Juma emerged from the fray, bloodied but determined. "The reinforcements are on their way," he shouted, his voice cutting through the noise. "We need to move before they regroup." Simbi's heart hammered in her chest. They had won the battle, but the war was far from over. "Where do we go next?" she asked. Juma pointed toward the heart of the royal city. "We strike at the palace. It's time to end this." Simbi's eyes widened, the enormity of his words sinking in. The palace. The seat of power. The place where her parents, the king and queen, held dominion over the kingdom. It was where everything had begun, and it was where this war would end. Ali's voice cut through her thoughts. "We can't do this alone. We'll need more allies." "We'll get them," Juma said. "There are others in the city who will join us once they see what we've done here. But we have to move quickly. The palace is waiting." Simbi looked out over the battlefield. The first victory had been won. But the true test was yet to come. Would they be able to take the palace? Would they be able to overthrow the royal family and bring about the change the kingdom so desperately needed? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain: Simbi, Ali, and the rebellion would stop at nothing to win their freedom. The heart of the kingdom with the first battle behind them, the rebellion's forces gathered and prepared for their next strike. The road ahead would be treacherous, filled with danger and uncertainty. But the flame of hope had been lit, and it was spreading across the kingdom. Simbi and Ali, now united in their cause, knew that the hardest part was yet to come. The royal family would not give up without a fight. They would need to be cunning, quick, and above all, they would need to trust in each other. As they made their way toward the royal city, the tension in the air grew thick. The fate of the kingdom, and their love, hung in the balance. I really hope you found this video entertaining. If you did, please show some love by giving it a like. I'd also love to hear your thoughts and feedback in the comments section. And most importantly, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click that notification bell so you're the first to know when I upload new content. I'm always creating new videos, and I wouldn't want you to miss out. Thanks for watching.